Welcome to the Fantasy Throwdown Podcast, bringing you the latest updates from the world of sports, gambling, and pop culture. Because you can't have a show without hot takes or a Tiger King meme these days. Know what I'm saying? Now, with over 200 episodes and ready to get after it again, here's your host, Dwayne Callender.
Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. Basically, gonna do something a little bit different today. It is the Daytona 500 show, and this is the first time I'm actually doing a show on the Daytona 500, which entails something completely different than what I would normally advise from a DFS perspective, and that is essentially ignoring the actual salary constraints, like ownership percentages. I'm not necessarily going to go down that path, and that's why I usually don't do the Daytona 500, because it is just such a random event. So obviously, for those of you new to NASCAR, the Daytona 500 is essentially the Super Bowl of NASCAR, which most folks would find strange. Why would you do your biggest event as your kickoff event? But that's just been the nature of NASCAR. Daytona Speedway is the number one track for NASCAR fans. It's the way they want to kick off the season, and it generates the most interest amongst the general fans. They do have some races at Indianapolis Speedway, where you have the Indy 500, Indy 500 race. So NASCAR also does an event there, but the Daytona 500 is the biggest event by far of all the NASCAR events, and it's the one the drivers want to win the most. So with that being said, you usually have a very deep field of cars. So you got over 40 cars on the track. It's a 500 lap race, so it's a lengthy race. You got a couple of hours ahead, and with that being in mind, it's also plate racing. So what do I mean by plate racing? There are restrictor plates on the vehicles that slow down the overall speed of these cars. So essentially, you've got large cars. Not unlike completely different from the Indy cars or even the F1 cars, which are fragile. You got cars going around on the track doing, and this is where people just kind of write off NASCAR, just doing driving around in an oval. There's a lot of strategy and different approaches involved in a race like this, and that's why I say the variance is so high. Because the chances of wrecking are just astronomically higher when you have that many vehicles on a track for that long of a period of time. Most races, you're looking anywhere from 300 to 250 laps. You're not necessarily going the full 500. And so when you add that layer and you've got to factor in pit stops, refueling, there's just a lot of balls to juggle in the air for these teams, and that's why I say salary, you really got to throw it out the window. This is a race where salary really doesn't matter in terms of your lineup construction from a DFS perspective, and the audience is essentially just kind of picking blindly, because a lot of casual fans are going to just look at some of their favorite drivers. They'll look at a Kevin Harvick. They'll look at a Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch. You got Kyle and Kurt Busch. You got Martin Truex Jr. You've got a number of popular names around NASCAR. The likes of Jimmy Johnson is officially retired. So you don't have Jimmy Johnson or Jeff Gordon around anymore. So you've got a younger group of drivers, but folks are going to go to their more popular drivers that they're fans of, and sign them in, and then they'll just pick the guys in the top 10 and think that's a wrap. And that's a mistake in terms of the overall construction, because realistically, the way the NASCAR races have gone the last couple of races at Daytona, because of the length of the contests themselves, there's just too many laps and too many places to wreck on the track, that realistically, from a DFS perspective, being in the top 10 to start the race is actually a detriment to you, because this race is about, for DFS purposes, this is about place differential. And, what I mean by place differential is the cars in the back, if they can somehow make their way to the front, the place differential points that they receive for their finishing position in the race relative to their start make them far more valuable than the cars that are starting out in front. So what I'm getting at here is, just because you may have ended up with the winner of the race in your lineup doesn't mean you're actually going to win a contest. You'll probably cash if you have the winner, but it doesn't mean you're going to win a tournament, because realistically, to win a tournament of this type for race, you need to have all 6 of your vehicles finish the race first off, and you need the place differential to work out in your favor. So realistically, what I would even say is, before we even start with the actual builds themselves, I would say right off the bat, the top 5 cars in the field in terms of starting position, they're out of the mix altogether for me. I wouldn't even consider them, even the pole sitter. There's too much downside and not nearly enough upside, because unlike most races, the pole sitter can rack up fastest laps early on, but that doesn't mean anything, because you're going to have wrecks at Daytona. Daytona is usually famous for having at least 2 or 3 massive wrecks during the course of the 500 laps. So, with that being said, with cars crashing out of the field, you're going to need to have vehicles that take advantage of the place differential, and you're just not going to get that at the top of the field. And worst case, if those cars start slipping, or even worst case scenario, they crash out of the race, you're done. You are done from a place differential standpoint, because the negative points you're going to get from having those cars at the very top not even finish the race, your lineup is automatically cooked. So, again, where I'm getting at is, you need to be able to take advantage of the fact that there are going to be cars that survive these wrecks that are going to move up in the standings from where they originally started out the race at. So I would say, like I said, the first 5 cars in terms of starting position, you got to cross them off your list. It's just not going to go anywhere for you. And, it's just a common mistake that you see time and again with NASCAR lineups, especially at Daytona, because there's just no benefit to playing the guys in the top 5. So in terms of the top 5, Alex Bowman on the pole, not in lineups. William Byron in second, not in lineups. Eric Almirola, even though he won the duel the other night, not in my lineups. Austin Dillon, 4th, not in the lineups. Christopher Bell, same deal. So then you get to 6th, and it's Bubba Wallace. Okay. You could play Bubba, but again, there was just not enough of a pull here to actually draw me into playing Bubba. He's starting with a new team. Michael Jordan now owns a NASCAR team. Bubba's his driver, but Bubba has no teammates. And one of the things you're going to see in NASCAR is you kind of need teammates to help you through races like these, because at a certain point, you're going to need a teammate to give you an assist, whether it's to get back from being a lap down, someone's blocking you get a little push. Like, there are a number of ways that teammates work together throughout the course of the race that, add up towards the end of the race. So towards the end, these guys usually start going at it for themselves, unless they know their car can't win it, then they'll help their teammate. But, a lot of it, you're going to see some teamwork coming in throughout the course of the race. So, seventh, you got Ryan Newman. Story for Newman last year was he was involved in a horrible wreck at Daytona, and, it was ugly. Like, you really thought this guy would have been in serious life-threatening danger. He did miss a significant portion, and that's like how 2020 was such a blur. Like, he had that horrific crash, and with the pandemic and everything else, everyone kind of forgot about that story. But he had a very horrific crash here last year, so that's going to be part of the narrative. Is like how he responds this go around. Is he a little bit more cautious? Does he try to drop to the back? A lot of questions there. Kevin Harvick, always a popular pick. I will have some exposure to Harvick, but I'm going to be underweight because, again, there's just so much downside. Yeah, Harvick could win the race, but, if he doesn't win the race, what is he bringing to the table for you? Not a whole lot from a DFS perspective because, again, like I said, the place differential scoring just doesn't favor guys in the top 10. Ryan Preece, no go. I just can't play Preece. Just too far up. He's in 11th. But I can play Joey Logano, and I'll talk about him in a bit, as well as Kyle Busch in 10th. I'll talk about him as well. So 9 and 10 are plays for me that I'll get to. And, you've got a couple other guys that, I'm not really going to be touching. Corey LaJoie in 16th, Daniel Suarez in 15th. Just not going to be playing. Here are the guys that you're going to be looking to target. And they're the guys way back. So I'm talking any driver from 30th on. So you got starting with Chase Briscoe, Eric Jones, Ross Chastain. Like, these are names you're not going to hear of, but like I said, this is not a pick your favorite guy kind of day. This is a build your roster back to front in a sense. Like, you build out the guys in the back that you want to play in the 30 and 40 range, and then you pick some of the more studs that are kind of in that 20 range to go with. So, realistically, I would say at least two guys 30 and beyond. And then you can play the Denny Hamlins of the world, the Cole Custers of the world. I want to be playing a lot of Denny Hamlin and Cole Custer in my lineups. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But Denny Hamlin's 8-1 to win this race, odds wise, in Vegas. That just tells you how much confidence people have in Denny Hamlin. He's going to be the most popular play on the high dollar contest entry. So if you're talking anywhere from $20 to $500, Denny Hamlin's going to be the most owned driver. And he's probably going to have 70% ownership, just straight out. Now, the question becomes, does there end up being a case for someone else to kind of sneak out? And that's where you get, some guys like a Ryan Blaney. It's not exactly the most exciting play in the world, but one thing that I can say, at least, is the fact that you can get a decent amount of exposure to somebody's plays from a DFS perspective, as long as you don't get too cute. And what I mean by too cute is, like I said, you build out from the back, you got the guys in the 30s and beyond, but don't play too many guys in the teens. You shouldn't be having more than 2 guys in that teen range of drivers. So you got the Blaney's at 14. You do have some guys that you can play, but I wouldn't go necessarily overboard like a Michael McDowell at 17th. If you're playing Blaney and you got McDowell in the same lineup, okay, that's good, but don't go and load up any more. Like there's just not enough value. Again, from a place differential standpoint, because what tends to happen in these NASCAR wrecks is the guys in the middle of the pack are the ones who get wiped out. So that's why you don't want to go too crazy in the teens, because if you got too many guys in the teens, chances are at least one of them's getting wrecked in one of the big crashes. And like I said, if you don't have all 6 of your drivers survive the course of the race, you're done. And it's just that simple. So as I said before, you have to kind of be able to balance, getting some value in there, but at the same time, yeah, you're still going to want to have someone that has a chance to win the race, but it's not the end of the world if your guy doesn't win the race. You just need to make sure you put yourself in the best position possible to have all 6 of your drivers get through the end of the race. And, one of the best ways to kind of work on the lineup construction is kind of getting some of the guys in the back, likely that won't get taken out during the course of the race by being in the middle of the pack, and the ones that are just going to hang around and ride for like 300 laps and then start making their push in the final 100 laps of the day. That's where you kind of want to be at. You want as calm as possible and then start racing in the last 50 laps to go a little bit more aggressive on gaining position, because again, things can turn on a dime at Daytona. And yeah, what I'm saying is not exactly exciting television, but when you got guys that are aggressive trying to push up front and it's only lap 200, bad things usually happen when it comes to that. So, and I'm going to say one name, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. When your nickname is Recky, there is a very, very good chance he's not going to finish this race. So